in the lead up to COP26, I mean, these G20 nations really need to be focusing on agriculture amongst their other climate targets, right? We've seen ambitious targets on energy and transport, but what is largely missing is agriculture. And agriculture, it makes up a huge portion of global greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, over 30% of total greenhouse gas emissions actually come from agriculture and animal agriculture. So we've seen targets to reduce emissions from the UK. They've stated a reduction target of 78% by 2035 compared to 1990 levels. That's going to take a huge undertaking and a large amount of investment to transition to a low carbon economy. So unless agriculture is also addressed, we're not going to make any of these targets a reality. So it's absolutely fundamental that we get some action on this really critical sector.
Not everyone will agree with your analysis of the figures. I think energy production, heating our homes and offices and transport, cars, flying, that kind of thing, accounts for 73% of global emissions, according to our World in Data. I wonder if cutting down on cows really can be the priority here.
It's absolutely necessary, and it's something that has been ongoing. I mean, methane contributes to a large portion of our emissions. In fact, just animal agriculture contributes more than the entire global transport sector. We're not going to stay within 1.5–2-degree targets without addressing agriculture. And in fact, it's just coming down the pipeline. Without addressing it now, certainly we're opening up this sector to bigger climate risks. And again, when we start talking about this issue, as you spoke about before, of food insecurity, a large number of problems stem from climate risks. And so we'd like to see governments actually focusing more on agriculture because we think it'll end up safeguarding livelihoods, economies, and the global food system in the future.
Well, I think we probably need to agree to disagree on the figures, but as you've probably been hearing, we've been reporting on the threat of what's been described as a biblical famine earlier in this programme. It's quite simply too much of the world has too much food and the rest of the world too little food. I guess if you're short of food, you might not be too worried about cows' emissions.
Well, I mean, we would say that the largest, most developed G20 countries need to be focusing on this. Certainly, when we think about moving into the COP, we need to be supporting those countries who have a significant portion of their GDP associated with agriculture. And in fact, in many of those governments and countries have livelihoods firmly interlinked with agriculture. But the writing, quite frankly, is on the wall. And we're not going to be able to stay within global targets unless we look at agriculture. So I think it's going to take a global concerted effort for governments to not only help incentivize farmers to look at some of those mitigating opportunities, but also think about ways we can produce food that actually produce lower emissions. So we would suggest that not only are there mitigating opportunities to reduce emissions in current agricultural practices, but there should also be incentives to move farmers perhaps away from some of the higher emitting proteins like meat or even pork into thinking about some of the more plant-based options that we're already producing to feed those animals.
Lettini in London, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Delighted, thank you.